Opposition! Right, the aim of this video is to have someone to play against. So basically something which will eventually chase us and chase the ball and try to score here on the left hand side. In the last video we set up the right goal. So as you can see I've got a left goal now set up which is called left goal in terms of its tag. And the idea was that when you scored in the right hand side the game basically reset after 2 seconds. You appeared back here in the middle. Now at the moment if I press play this would happen, it'd do exactly the same thing if I scored in the left goal. Now, in terms of the code for that, literally the code we did previously for goal is just a bit of copying and pasting, really. So where we had this thing of, well, if the ball goes into the right goal, then start the home goal code, which is this code here. Now, I've just literally copied those lines and pasted them underneath, changed right goal to left goal, because that's what it's called now, this goal here. And underneath that, then I've basically copied and pasted this code straight underneath, so it says away goal. And what you'll notice is it is exactly the same, and you're probably thinking, well, why have we got double of the same thing? Now, the idea will be at some point that when the goal on the right, when we score on the right hand side, then the home score will go up by 1 on the scoreboard, which we'll eventually introduce. And the idea is when you score on the left goal, which is the opposition's kind of goal they're trying to score, then their score will go up on this one, but we just haven't added it at this stage. So in that respect, all we need to do, we don't actually need to do any extra coding at this point, but you will need to do a bit of copying and pasting to make sure it looks like something like that. Okay? Right, so let's talk about the opposition. So you might have noticed down here that I've got an extra kick sound, and I've also got my opposition player. So you can tell he's an opposition because he's got a blue kit on. And I might actually change my home player at some stage so he actually looks like that as well, but obviously with a different colour. So I'm going to get this opposition into position. Is that the right way of saying that? Opposition into position? That's a bit tricky actually. So we're going to rotate him 45, no, 90 degrees. So he's actually facing where he should be facing. And we kind of want him here. So I'm going to put Y as 0. So he's kind of in the middle of the pitch in terms of up and down. And X position 5. Yeah, so he's actually outside of the. I can't do any less for now. Well, I could do the 4.53 it was, but there's a reason why I'm doing that, which will become clear in a moment. Right, so at this point in time, I haven't got anything set up on it, so the ball and the player will literally run straight through him. So we need to add a box collider, or a collider, I should say. And in fact, I'm going to use a Polygon Collider. I spelled polygon wrong. That'd be a good start, wouldn't it? And that basically then puts a collider around his entire body. So if the ball hits his beak, if it hits his bum, if it hits his arm, it will bounce off in some respect. I'm also going to add a rigid body because we will eventually add some code to him to be able to do a couple of things. We may as well do it now. So let's type in rigid body 2D, and I think if we press play at this point, obviously we haven't done any coding or whatever, but if I kick the ball at him, then he will probably move a little bit and the ball should bounce off him as well. Whoops. Oh my god. He's bouncing around. I don't know what went on there because I forgot on the rigid body to set his gravity scale to 0. Otherwise he just drops like he did. So let's try that one more time. And like I said, when I kick the ball towards him, it kind of bounces off it, but you notice it basically sends him flying, right? Because there is an impact then. And obviously the ball is obviously a lot stronger than our player by the sounds of it. So a couple of things we need to sort out. The mass, if I knock his mass right the way up, should I try doing that or do I need to do something else at this stage? Yeah, let's knock his mass up, it'd be better. So if I do it to like 500, but that might be a bit tricky for me to move him. Let's try that again. I just don't want him to go flying off. I just want the ball to bounce off him, really. Right, so if I kick the ball at him, so the ball doesn't bounce off him. No, why didn't it bounce off him? Let's see what's going on there. Let's try it from this side. So I'm getting quite good at this. So it does bounce off him, okay? And he is moving. Now, we don't want that to happen, but that we'll be fixing that as we're going along as well. But what I did want to do in this video, before we start coding this guy to actually start chasing us around and so on, I actually wanted it to reset so he comes back into this position like our player and our ball does when we score a goal. And I also wanted to make a sound when the ball hits him as if he's kicking it, just like our player makes a sound when we run into the ball. So in that respect, on our goal then, we are going to add, first of all, a couple of lines here at the top. So we've got public transform, and instead of player, this time it's going to be opposition. Did I spell that right? Yeah, I did spell it right. And we're also going to add an audio source for the kick-in side of things. Audio source. I'm going to call it kick-in one. I don't know why I'm going to call it that. It's just so it stands out to me in some respect. And then underneath all of this, we are going to have a couple of lines of code, which I've got here, which I'm just going to bring across. And I'll explain that when it actually pastes in here. So when we actually collide with the opposition, and we need to put a tag on him as well, this sound file is going to play. So first things first, and we're going to save that. It's probably not going to like it when we go back onto Unity, because it's going to say what is opposition, maybe, potentially, or not. I might be completely wrong. But it's kind of reminding myself, really, just to make sure that I get something done before I press play or anything like that. So at the moment, our opposition doesn't have a tag, and it needs to be called opposition. So I'll need to add a tag, and it's going to be called opposition. So make sure it's spelled right, so the capital's in the right place, and so on. Let's click back on him again, and let's tag him as opposition. So the idea is then when the ball hits him, a kicking noise will happen. The other kicking noise, kick two. So I'm going to add an empty. I'm going to call it kick-in one. And remember, it doesn't actually need to be called exactly the same thing as what I've called her in the code. It's just for my own kind of like purposes and understanding in terms of remembering what does what and so on. So at this stage then on our ball, oh no, I haven't put kicking one in yet, have I? Oh, but it's actually kicking two. I'm going to drag it across to there. So it's actually in there. And we don't want it to play on a wake. But what we do want to have happen is that when the ball hits into the opposition, and you can see it doesn't know what opposition is at this stage, so we've got to drag it across to here. We want it to play the kick-in one noise. Let's just see if that works if I press play. Got a feeling I might need to tick something I haven't ticked yet. But we'll get that in a second. So we'll kick the ball into him. And what should happen is a noise should happen when the ball hits him. Yeah, it did. So did you hear actually made like little? No, it wasn't really effective in respect of he didn't actually kick the ball at all. But as the ball hits him, it actually makes a kicking noise. So there's a bit of a sound effect of it clattering into him. Right, a couple of other things just to sort out first of all, because at the moment when we actually score, he won't get reset to this position if he's spinning round or knocked and so on. So we do need to add a couple of lines of code to our a couple of lines of code to our goal code. So if we score in a home goal, the player resets, the ball resets, and the opposition will now reset back to 5-0. So that's the X position, that's the Y position. That's why I was saying, but I wanted it to be 5 and 0 here. And basically that's what that is there then. And we also need to make sure that he is facing the right way. So he's facing the opposite way to the player. And if he is moving, so if he is tracking backwards like he did earlier when we first bumped into him, then I will stop. There won't be any movement at all. And I'm just going to chuck that in there on the away goal part, and we should be okay. So I don't know whether or not I need to play it at this stage because it will just reset and he's not moving at all. But what we will do in the next video is add some code to this guy so that he will start chasing the ball and actually make it a bit more of a, a competitive game. Because at the moment he's just standing there staring at us.